There was a runner named Cathy Armstrong. Now, Cathy Armstrong had set a national record in May of that year. The NCAAs were in June. But in May, she had set a national record in the 10,000. And so naturally, Cathy was picked to win the 10,000 at the NCAAs because she had just set the national record. Well, everything was in Cathy's favor. So when the guns went off, pow, and they started running. Cathy is leading the pack, and she's running well because she was picked to win. So as she's running, and so they made it through part of the race. The race is on the oval, is on the track. It's not a cross-country race, but it is on the track. And so they're running, and when they got to about 6,500 meters in the 10,000, for some reason, Cathy left the track. She ran off the track, ran across the field, she jumped a fence, and ran down the road, went to a bridge, got to a bridge, and she jumped off the bridge. 40 feet below she fell, paralyzing herself from the waist down. Now here it is that Cathy Armstrong was the #1 runner of the 10,000 meters that year. She had set a national record. The only thing that was to be decided was who's going to come out second or come out after Cathy Armstrong. And so when they asked Cathy sometime later on what happened, she couldn't explain why in the world did she leave the race that she was winning, that she was picked to win, that she would have won. Why in the world did Cathy Armstrong leave the race, went to a bridge, jump off the bridge, and now she's in a wheelchair? And even years later, why, Cathy, did you leave the race? In the same way, you young men and young ladies, in the same way that Cathy Armstrong was picked to win the race, in the same way that she was situated to win the race, that you all are picked to win the race. But the question is, are you going to leave the race the same way that Cathy Armstrong led the race? Unexplainably, she left the race, she ran across the field, jumped the fence. That took a lot of effort for her to do that. She was winning. She was picked to win, but why in the world? Why in the world did Cathy Armstrong leave the race that she was picked to win? You all are picked to win the race. There are a lot of stuff that have been situated for you all to be able to win the race. There are people, and Cam mentioned that he and I went to Africa together, and the people that we went and we saw over there in Africa that they live in huts and they walk on dirt roads, and here it is, they have to go down, they don't even have running water. You know, and the funny thing, and he'll tell you, the funny thing is this: they have no running water, they live in huts, they walk down dirt streets, but they got cell phones. I can't figure that out. How they got cell phones, and you ask him, they have a little charger station, and here it is, they're walking down the dirt road with a cell phone. You know? But they don't have the same opportunities and advantages that you all have. The courage to stay in the race. The courage to stay in the race takes not being T-U-F-F, but T-O-U-G-F. Because anybody can be T-U-F-F. Because the people that I work with in prison, that I've been working with since 1983, almost 40 years, yeah, they want to be T-U-F-F, ride or die, man, we die. Everybody gonna die. You know, everybody gonna die. But why in the world that you have people like that could do better in the race? But they won't stay in the race, even though they were picked to win the race. One of the most heartbreaking stories that I've ever seen was a young girl by the name of Kim Steptoe. Kim came to Huntsville. Huntsville is about 70 miles from Houston. Kim missed school, and she wanted to come to Huntsville and sling a little dope. Kim is carrying a .38, and so she's strapped. So she's out there in Huntsville from Houston. Nobody knows her. She's slinging dope. Somebody try to jack up the dope. She take the gun. She shoot the guy in the chest. The guy dies. All that Kim had going for her is now out the door. She too was picked to win the race. Why in the world, if you pick to win the race, that you're not going to stay in the race and finish the race? Now, someone speculated that Cathy may have had some personal problems. That she may have been a perfectionist, that she put too much pressure on herself. She not only had psychological problems, but she had also emotional problems. And so therefore, when it came and she broke, she left the race, she crossed the field, she climbed the fence, she ran up the street, she climbed onto the bridge, and she jumped off. That took a lot of effort. And if all that effort would have been put into finishing the race, she indeed would have won the race. How about yourselves, young men and young ladies, that you all are picked to win the race, but do you have the courage to finish the race? I'm from Louisiana, as I told you all. I'm from Louisiana, and my mother lived down off the main street. So one time I went home. And when I turned onto the street that led to my mother's street, I saw 3 dudes lying in a ditch. It's quite business. Lying in a ditch. I mean, just lying in the ditch on their side. And I passed by and said, look at those slugs. I'm not lying, I call them slugs. And so one of them saw my Texas license plate and recognized my car. He jumped up and flagged me down. It was my nephew, lying in a ditch. I backed up and said, hey, his name was Lavelle. I said, Lavelle, what are you doing? Chilling. He said, boy, you in the ditch. How you gonna chill in a ditch? The problem with Lavelle was this: Lavelle didn't have the courage to finish the race. His mother sent him to live with my wife and I in Texas because Lavelle wasn't performing well in school. Lavelle was in the 7th grade. Lavelle was 15, 16 years old in the 7th grade. So what happened with Lavelle was this: Lavelle was in the 1st grade. Lavelle didn't learn the lessons of the 1st grade, so they held him back. And they kept him back, and so they wouldn't go keep him 3 years in 1st grade, so they moved him to the 2nd grade. But he didn't learn the lesson in the 1st grade, and so he's in the 2nd grade, he's struggling, so they put him in the 3rd grade. And so now he's in the 3rd grade, they're going to hold him back because he doesn't know the lesson in the 1st grade. And so Lavelle just kept being pushed back. So his mother said, go live with Uncle Freddie. He come to live with Uncle Freddie, and Uncle Freddie said, Lavelle, are you going to finish school? Because your mother sent you here to give you a chance. Yeah, Uncle Freddie, I'm going to finish school, I'm going to stay with this. I said, okay. But when I held him to it, he didn't have the courage to finish the race. So Lavelle went back home. And as soon as he got back home, he quit school. He quit school. And now Lavelle is dysfunctional. He cannot function. He didn't have the courage to finish the race. Think about it, young men and young ladies. You're not sleeping on the bridges. You have everything a lot of things that other people in other countries don't have. You have this wonderful school to learn. You have these gifted teachers to learn from. But do you have the courage to finish the race? Lavelle can't read. He couldn't even read the book to learn the information to take his driving test. So what Lavelle did, Lavelle got one of his homeboys, said, you know what, go and take the test for me. You know how folk can do stuff like that. So his boy went and took the test for him. The boy passed the test, and when it came time to the driving part, that you take the driving part, afterwards you take the picture for the license, the boy played like he was sick. I'll come back tomorrow and take the driving part. So when he came back tomorrow, the next day to take the driving part, there was another person, and so he went driving, and it was Lavelle that time. And so the only way Lavelle could get a license was through trickery, because he didn't have the courage to take the courage to stay in the race. That young girl, Kim, when she shot that guy, and the guy died, Kim thought, hey, just go to juvie, sit it out a little bit, I'm out in a minute, it's all good. what they did, they adjudicated Kim to stand trial as an adult, 15 years old, standing trial as an adult. They gave Kim Steptoe 65 years in prison for that crime. The courage to stay in the race. And what Kim didn't understand, and a lot of times we don't understand it either, that we can always choose the action, but you can never ever choose the consequence. You can always choose the action, but something else takes over as far as consequences are concerned. I'm still thinking about my nephew, Lavelle, that he didn't have the courage to stay in the race. I'm still thinking about Cathy Armstrong, that she was picked to win. There are some of you here, and I can see it in your face. There is brilliance here. But are you going to perform it? Because you simply don't have the courage to stay in the race. That you're going to dumb yourself down because your boy, your girl, you know, they talk crazy about you because here it is, you making A's. Oh, there you go with your little A. You think you're smarter than everybody else. And then you're going to dumb yourself down just because you want to kick it with your boy and with your girl. The courage to stay in the race. You know, you like anybody playing with your money? There is it. I don't like nobody playing with my money either. But do you not know that a person who gets a college degree, that they will make $1 million more than someone who doesn't? And so here it is that you let your friends dumb you down. They're playing with your money. Because you can make $1 million, they're taking money out of your mouth, out of your hand. Because you're going to dumb yourself down, you're going to have the courage to stay in the race. I used to come to school and come to class, and I'd sit in the back of the classroom. They weren't going to learn, and they didn't want me to learn, they just wanted to hang out and chill. Like my cousin lying in the dish, chilling. But then a light went off. Nobody told me I'd make $1 million more than a person without a college degree. But I just figured there had to be a better way. And so instead of sitting in the back of the class, I came to sit in front of the class. And everything that teacher said, it fell out of his mouth as if it was gold landing in my lap. And I was amazed. I was amazed. Guess what? That nephew of mine, of course, he didn't finish school. None of my nieces or nephews in Louisiana, none of them has a college degree. My brothers and sisters, I'm the youngest of 5, none of them have a high school degree. None of them graduated from high school. And of my mother's children, I'm the only one that graduated from high school, of course, the only one that went to college, etc., etc., etc. It takes courage to finish the race. What happened to Cathy, who was picked to finish the race? Perhaps it's not Cathy. Maybe it might be someone else. That instead of having the courage to race, you get off the course. And instead of running across the field like Cathy did, maybe it might be drugs. Maybe it might be alcohol. Maybe it might be something else that causes me to leave the race, run across the field, jump a fence, run up the street, climb into the rails of the bridge, and jump off 40 feet below. It takes courage to finish the race. And that's what you have to fill yourself with, young men and young ladies. Do you have the courage to finish the race? You started the race, and you are picked to win. What would happen if you were born 17 of 19 children? Not only were you born 17 of 19 children, but when you were a child, you developed polio. And they had to put some more heavy braces on your feet, and your brothers and sisters would take turns massaging your legs so they don't atrophy and shrink up and everything. And then here it is, not only that, you develop another disease. And now you're bedridden for most of your youthful life. And now you're running around with your braces on and those heavy shoes. Doesn't seem like you've been given much of an advantage in life. But then you begin to grow, and those braces came off. And you not only grew and the braces came off, but you grew to almost 6 feet tall. And now here it is, you're 6 feet tall, and you're running. You're not only running, but you scored the most points, at least in your generation, than any other girl ever scored in a basketball game. And you went on to have a track scholarship at Tennessee State University. You were so fortunate to compete in the Olympics. Oh, you won a bronze medal that first year that you competed in the Olympics. But 4 years later, not only did you win, but you won the 100 meter, you won the 400 meter relay, and you won the 200 meters. You didn't start out very good, but you had the courage to finish the race. Who am I talking about? Nobody knows who it is? This is not Jeopardy. Nobody knows who it is. Anybody else in the room know who it is?
Jackie Joyner Kersey.
Wilma Rudolph.
Oh, Rudolph.
Wilma Rudolph. Wilma Rudolph started life at such a disadvantage. But you know what she had? The courage to finish the race. If I could pull this out of me and put it inside you, and let you know truly how important it is for you to finish the race, you'd understand. You'd understand. Or what would happen to you if you, all of a sudden, they thought you were so brilliant, but then you develop a disease, such a crippling disease, that at first you were unable to use your limbs, and then you got restricted to, not only restricted, but to confined to a wheelchair. And then you couldn't move your head, and you had to blow into your wheelchair to move yourself, but yet you became one of the most brilliant minds that the world has ever known. Somebody already said it. Who am I talking about? There you go. Stephen Hawking. The courage to finish the race. I was not talented, more talented than my brothers, nor my sisters. They didn't finish high school, but I wasn't more talented than them. But the only talent that I had that my brothers and sisters did not have was the talent to use my talent, the courage to finish the race. Don't let anything or anyone lure you into getting off track, running off the track. You picked to win. You previously set the national record. You're leading the pack, but you run off the track. You run across the field. You jump a fence. You run up the street. You climb into the bridge, and you jump off. The courage to finish the race. There are 162,000 people that are locked up in Texas's prisons. In Huntsville, there are 8 prisons. Outside of Huntsville, there is another half dozen within a 30-mile radius. 20 miles from Huntsville is the Ferguson unit, where they house all of the young men, well, most of the young men who come to prison. Young men that are warehoused in their prison because they didn't have the courage to finish the race. I was at one of the prisons teaching, and I walked down the hall, and there was this guy who was so tall, the gate, he had to duck to go under the gate. And I looked in his face, and I asked the lieutenant, I said, is that Chris? She said, yeah, that's Chris. I said, no, man. Then the lieutenant, hey, Max! Yeah! Chris Maxburn, a #1 draft pick out of high school to play basketball, walking the halls of a prison. The courage to finish the race. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take courage. And that's what you have to have, young men and young ladies. You have to have that kind of courage to finish the race. I want to again say thank you so much for letting me talk with you all, and for me spending this time with you. And I really, really hope that something was said that might just set a fire inside you, that you'll have that courage to finish the race. I'm looking at genius in this room. Somebody may not see it, but I'm looking at genius in this room. You know, how fast are you moving right now? He said, how fast are you moving right now? Someone said, I don't know either. Anybody knows how fast you're moving right now? What if I were to tell you that you're moving at breakneck rapid speed? You're moving really fast right now. Because the earth is moving around the sun. And in order for the earth to move around the sun, it is moving, if I'm not mistaken, as I recall it, 163,000 miles a minute. And guess what? It's taking you with it. It's taking you with it. So you see, it may be imperceptible about how fast you're going, but guess what? You're moving really fast. The same way it is with opportunity. Opportunity, the Greek says, is like a ball-headed naked runner, that when it passes you by, you cannot grab it. So therefore, you have to take advantage of every opportunity that you have. Take advantage of all your opportunities so that you can indeed finish the race. Do we have any questions or anything either about the kind of work that I do, anything that I say, or anything that is going on that you might need some information on? Any questions? Yes.
Where all have you been in Tom? You said you've been to
I've been to a lot of places. Everywhere I go, when I go and do other things, I try to get into the schools and talk to the students. For example, West Virginia, when I've gone there, there's a prison in Lewisburg, West Virginia, and it's a women's prison. And when I go there, I let the people know in the community that I'm coming, and I'm available to go and speak to the schools. And so I go and speak to the schools. Plainview, right? Plainview out in West Texas. When I would go there, and I'd go there and report to people that sponsor what I do in Huntsville, they would have me to go to all of the schools, no matter what age. I go to all of the schools and talk to the students and do motivational talks. To the schools down there in South Texas, in Port Lavaca, and in those counties down there. When I go down there and visit with those people, I typically go into the schools and talk to the students in the schools there. And it depends on what's going on. Sometimes I'll talk to the alternative schools, and you have kids that are sitting there with monitors on their legs. They're sitting there with felonies on their records, and they can't be in regular school. So I go and talk with them straight up. And also down in Orange County, east of Beaumont, I go and talk to the students in all the schools that are there, and I do similar talks to them. It depends on, again, what's going on. If they're getting ready for testing, they want me to come in and kind of motivate them to do well in testing. Or if it's Red Ribbon Week month, I go in there and talk with them about drugs and those kinds of things. So that, I go to a lot of places. Anywhere that I go, if they let me to go in and talk to the students in the schools, I go in and talk to the students in the schools. Great question. Great question. Thank you so much for that question. And it takes a lot of courage to even ask a question. And so that young man has, even to initiate something like that. The way that I learned, I didn't just learn from just studying. I learned from the question. And so even when I was working on my master's, if I didn't learn the material, if I didn't know, if the teacher didn't explain it well, my hand is up. Well, Dr. Friel, I'm not getting this. Can you say it another way? Dr. Friel, what about this? And by the time that I was finished asking the question, I had pretty much mastered that material because I asked questions. Don't just sit there and not understand, and someone who is a professional who can explain it. that teacher got their money, you trying to get your money. And she says she don't like nobody playing with her money. I don't like nobody messing with my money either. And if you taking $1 million out of my pocket, I got some issue with that. Don't take my money from me. $1 million, I'll give you a nickel. But I ain't giving you no $1 million. And you know, no, why am I going to be broke and eat bologna sandwiches? I say sandwiches, you know, and I remember when I was in high school and I was in the restroom and someone wrote on the wall, I want a sandwich, S-A-N-A-G-E. I've been doing these motivationals, I've been working with convicts since 1983, and I would say since the early 90s, I started going in and talking to students and doing these motivational talks. I really am into the young person. I really, really, really am into you young people. And you're not the future of the world, you're the future of today. There are more than you than old folks. And what we have to do, we have to cultivate your minds. And we really have to capture your imagination because you all are geniuses. You really are geniuses. They looked at Stephen, and guess what? Old boy was in a wheelchair, but he had been married 2-3 times. So, you know, there must be something going on with this guy. But somebody can't see it. Somebody can't see it. Somebody can't see the genius that is in this room. And you all are geniuses. All right, that means time up, I guess. But if that means time up, it means that you got to go to your next session. Thank you again for letting me come and talk with you. You're tremendous. I look forward to coming and talking with you at some point in the future. Thank you so much.